One of the first skills you will need to develop is the ability to identify different types of keys. Let's look at a few keys and learn some common terminology. First, there are 6 basic types of keys: bit keys, barrel keys, flat keys, cylinder keys, tubular keys, dimple style keys, or high security keys. The first step in duplicating a key is to identify the key and the correct key blank to duplicate. A key blank is an uncut key. As far as parts of a key on a bit key, we have the bow, we have the shank, the long part here is the shank, then we have a shoulder, then there's a post. The part out here that attaches to the post is referred to as the bit, and cuts on the end of the bit or the top of the bit or across the side of the bit are referred to as ward cuts. If there's a cut on this side, it's normally referred to as a tumbler cut. And this has to do with the addition of lever tumblers to the warded locks, and we're going to talk about those more in the next course. So the parts of a bit key, just to review, we have the bow, the shank, the shoulder, the post, the bit, the ward cuts, and then the tumbler cuts. And this is a barrel key. So the parts of a barrel key, we have the bow, the shank, and the bit. Actually, the hollow part of the shank is often referred to as the barrel of the key also. You don't really see a true barrel key as much anymore. They were popular for winding antique clocks. They were used in furniture for roll-top desk and drawer locks and armoires, other kinds of furniture that had locks on them. Wooden boxes, wooden storage boxes, and wooden writing boxes were a common use for the barrel key. But again, the traditional style barrel key is not really used that much more. It's today's modern version of this is called a tubular key, and we'll look at that in just a minute. Here you can see a small padlock that would take a barrel key. Here's the pin in the center, and this also has a case ward right here. So the key would have to have a ward cut here to enter this particular lock, and then be the correct shape of bit to actually open the padlock. But that's also an example of where you could find the use of a barrel key. Okay, on a flat key, the parts of a flat key, we have the bow, then we have the blade, we have the tip. Right here we refer to this as the stop. Then we have our tumbler cuts. This is the throat cut. And the key must be put into the lock so the throat cut lines up with the front of the lock. And so the key is really lined up by both the stop and the throat cut. But once it hits the stop, all of the cuts should be lined up correctly. So just to go over those again, then we have the bow, we have the blade, we have the tip, we have the stop, we have the tumbler cuts, and then we have the throat cut. To review the parts of a flat key, we have the bow, the blade, the tip, the stop, the tumbler cuts, and the throat cut. Okay, a cylinder key you're familiar with, I'm sure. These are the most common types of keys, and the cylinder key is used in both the pin tumbler and the disc tumbler lock. And both of those locks, they turn a cylinder. They turn the center part that turns we call a plug, and they go in and they turn that, and they're referred to as cylinder type keys. The parts of the key, the handle of the key is called the bow. The other end is called the tip. The long part is called the blade. The grooves are called the milling of the key. This key has shoulders. It has 2 shoulders, one on the top, one on the bottom. Some keys do not have shoulders. They are stopped by the tip of the key when they go into the lock. You have the cuts or the bitting of the key. So to go over those again, we have the bow, the tip, the blade, the shoulders, the milling, which are the grooves, then the cuts are the bitting. The basic parts of a key include the bow, the tip, the blade, the milling or the grooves, the shoulder, and the bittings or the cuts of the key. Now, this is a tubular key, and again, it's much like a barrel key. It's hollow on the end, and as I mentioned earlier, this is the kind of the modern day barrel key. But one significant difference is that the cuts that operate the lock are on the end of the tube, and they would actually engage pins, just like a pin style or pin tumbler lock. This is commonly used for vending machines, padlocks, bike locks. There's a lot of applications for this. This key is often referred to as an ace key, because that was one of the first major manufacturers of this tubular type key was for ace locks. This is an example of a high security key, a dimple style key. This even has some additional features that we'll talk about much later in the course, but this is again a high security dimple style key. Now here's an example of one of the new car keys that has this side milling on it, and I've heard these called by lots of names, side winders and laser cut and so on, but it's simply a key with side milling on it, and that's kind of the what we're seeing in more and more development of high security locks is the addition of side milling to keys. Here is another example of a high security key with side milling on the key. This is a Schlage Primus key. We'll be talking about the Schlage Primus and the Primus XP later in the course. That'll be in course number 20. But my point is, again, that this side milling is one thing that they're adding to get higher security for their locks. Just to review the different types of keys that we covered. We covered the bit key, the barrel key, the flat key, the cylinder key, the tubular key, and the high security key, which could be a dimple style key or a side milled type key. Okay, now we're going to turn our attention to key identification, and we're going to be focused on just the cylinder keys for key identification. Most of the keys that you're going to be asked to duplicate are going to be cylinder keys. Occasionally you'll get a bit key or a flat key of some type, and it's pretty much the same process that we will be using in the cylinder key identification. But what we're going to look at to identify the keys is the shape of the bow, the length of the blade, the shoulders. Does it have a shoulder? Does it have one shoulder, two shoulders, or none? The milling or grooves of the key, the thickness of the key, if there's an ID number stamped on the key, and then if there's a manufacturer stamp on the key. Now, if we just have a bunch of keys piled up, even in a pile, we can look right away and we can see that there's a lot of differences in these keys that we can recognize. And once, of course, you know their bow shapes, you can pick them out readily. But it's obvious that, again, this shape is different from this shape, isn't it? Two completely different bow shapes. The width of the blades, the length of the blades, there's differences that just stand out immediately. This key does not have a shoulder up here like this key has. This key does have a stop here, but it's only on this one side. Here again, much different bow. If I pick this one up, I know I'm dealing with a Schlage key blank again, don't I? Here we have a quickset bow. Now these are the two you want to learn first, the Schlage and the quickset. I've already said that in the video, but just to go over that again, that those are going to be the two that you're going to see the most of in residential and commercial work. Many companies, besides Schlage and quickset, make locks that these keys will fit in. So there's just millions and millions of these locks out there for these two keyways. There are two general categories of keys and key blanks. Key blanks are simply uncut keys. There are original keys, which are made by the original manufacturers of the lock sets, and then there are companies that make just key blanks, which may fit into the locks that are made by other companies. Of course, the key blanks have to be cut before they will work a lock. For example, Schlage, Kwikset, and Yale all make keys which come with their locks. These are called original keys. Then there are companies like Ilco, Jet, Star, Taylor, and ESP which make key blanks. Nearly all original key manufacturers try to identify their keys by the shape of the bow. Key blank manufacturers also make keys which look like the originals. Those key blanks are called lookalikes. Most key blank manufacturers make lookalike key blanks. However, some companies like ESP make blanks which are generic. In other words, the bow does not necessarily match the original. Generic key blanks are cheaper to make and usually cost less. The easy system of key identification, which was developed by the key blank distributors, is an offshoot of a system that was originally developed by Cole Key Blank Manufacturer. The easy system of key blank identification uses one or two letters followed by a number. For example, SC1 is a common Schlage key blank. Ilco, which is also a large supplier of key blanks, has their own system which normally uses four numbers, often followed by letters. The Ilco number for the easy SC1 key blank is the number 1145. Some common abbreviations for some of the large manufacturers: American is AM, Arrows AR, Chicago CG, Corbin CO, Dexter DE, Eagle EA, Elgin EL, Falcon FA, Fort FR, Kwikset KW, Lockwood L. Master is the letter M, Nationals NA, Olympic OL, Russwin RU, Sargent S, Schlage SC, Taylor is the letter T, Weiser WR, Westlock WK, and Yale is the letter Y. Keys that are from the original manufacturer are normally going to have their name on the key blank. This is an original Schlage key from that manufacturer. This is a Kwikset key. It's got their name on it. And the reason that I'm working with Schlage and Kwikset right off the start of the key identification portion of this video is because Schlage and Kwikset are the two most common locks in America as far as residential commercial type work. There are other locks out there that are quite common in given areas, but these two particular manufacturers, we see them almost everywhere. Okay, now notice this key blank has no name stamped on it. Okay, but if we look at it, we can see whoever made the blank did identify it though. Here you can see the SC1. As compared to this blank is a Schlage 9, SC9. Here's another key blank. Now, this one, again, there's no name on it, but right here you can see stamped on the bow of the key, KW1 for the Kwikset 1 key blank. Okay, now I already mentioned that the handle of the key is called the bow, and that quite often will tell us who the manufacturer is the shape of the bow. There are some companies that make key blanks that do not use the original manufacturer's shape, and those can be a little bit more difficult to tell as to what manufacturer they belong to, but you'll learn from other ways of looking at the key. We need to be aware of how wide the blade is, how long the blade is, how long the overall key is, and in particular we need to know the shape of the groove or the milling. So we need to turn the key up on end and look down on the end of the blank to see what the groove looks like. Now on camera it's not going to be that easy to do, so I have a drawing here to illustrate this. We need to be able to recognize the different types of grooves that are cut into the sides of the keys. The most common type cut is the square cut. But also the cut could be round, it could be V-shaped, it could have a long angle on one side or a long angle on the other. So we need to learn these 5 different patterns of grooves and begin to study keys and begin to try to recognize how the key is cut. And that will help us when somebody brings in a key to be duplicated. Looking at these grooves can help us to identify the key quicker and find the right blank to copy for the customer. So where you want to look at, and this is really the last step in the key identification, is to check right up here where the blade meets the bow, where the grooves stop. And look at the shapes that you get there and make sure that the shapes of the key you're trying to duplicate match up with the shapes in the blank. If you have a square groove, it's going to look like this. A V-shaped groove will be like a triangle at the top. A half round will be just that. And then on your long angled right angle cuts and your long angled left angle cuts, you're going to see something like this, where it comes around and points right for right angle and comes around and points left for left angle. And what causes that is that here you would have a long slope on this side here, and as they lift the milling cutter from this blank, because it is shallower here, you're going to not cut any further than this. Here is your deeper angle on this side, and it's going to cut further. So that's how you can distinguish your right angle grooves and your left angle grooves. You see on this Schlage key blank, the milling here comes around, making a right angle groove here. That's because this side right here is deeper at this point than it is over here. Here you can see 2 keys that are very similar, and they both have grooves right here. There is a difference here of something going on here. We can see a little bit of a difference. It could be just something from the milling, or it could be a real difference. We have to inspect it further. But both of these are Yale keys, but they're different. One's a Y13, one's a Y14. And they both have the 2 grooves that are half round grooves. If we turn them over, you have a difference here that you don't see on this one. Again, this groove is basically the same groove. It's a half round groove. But there's additional milling right in here that you do not have on this. Now if I hold these up so that you can see the end, and again I got them going the same way, so I have this single groove here, and so that these should match up, and you can see, well, obviously there's a difference there. See that? This one has another groove right here. This doesn't have that. So that's why the last place that you always look when you're matching your keys up is at the tip of the milling grooves. And just double check all those tips, and you're not going to go wrong very often on selecting your blank. Now there is a thumb side and a finger side to a key. And the way we do it in North America is that we hold the key in our right hand so that the bitting is up. And whatever side your thumb is on, that's the thumb side, and the other side would be the finger side. Now that's not true for every country in the world. Some countries, they actually turn the key with the bitting down. So, but as far as we're concerned, like I say, in North America, hold it in your right hand with the bitting up, and you can identify the thumb side and the finger side of the key. Key blank catalogs are very helpful in identifying keys. All of the major key blank manufacturers have their own catalogs, By studying these catalogs, you can learn a great deal about the types of keys and locks produced by different manufacturers. Let's take a look at a key blank catalog and practice identifying some keys. Okay, we're first going to use the Jet company's key catalog, and just to look through it a little bit here to get started, you can see that it shows the drawings of keys. And we're going to look for a couple of keys in here and see how to use this catalog. These are all cylinder keys here. You can see at the top of the page it says cylinder keys. And if we go on through it, they'll show different products that they have available. Here we have foreign auto keys. If we back up a little bit, you'll see domestic auto keys. So if you know what the key goes to, you'll know which section of the catalog to look into. Now these are again automotive keys here. They're plastic bows on them. And then if you go on, you'll see other tools that they sell, programmers and so on for cars. And they have personalized keys and key tags and so on. And in the back there will be a cross-reference that we'll look at in just a minute. But to get started, let's say that we're brand new to this business and we don't really know much about identifying keys at all, and someone brings in a key like this. Now, again, you probably already recognize this key, but let's say that we don't recognize it. What we're going to look for is the shape, the size, and the shoulders first. Now, the drawings in the book are actual size, so we can kind of tell from the size of the key that we know it's not going to be a smaller key. It's going to be kind of a medium to a larger key. We know what the bow shape is. Now on the shoulders, again, some keys have a shoulder or a stop on one side. Some have it on both sides, like this key does. Some keys do not have a stop. They are stopped by the tip of the key. When it goes all the way in until it stops, and the tip of the key stops the key from going any further into the lock. And that's how it positions itself inside the lock. But again, to start with, I normally look for the size of the key, the shape of the bow, and then the stops. And I can see, for example, right away that this key is not at all. None of these keys up here are even close. This key here is a key that has no shoulders. This key is stopped by the tip of the key. And we'll just look through here, and then in a minute I'll zoom in so you can see these better. But again, just looking quickly, the size of the key, shape of the bow, stops or no stops. And if we continue to flip through the pages, we're going to come to some keys that look like the one that we're looking for. Now we'll notice that there's a number of them that have the same bow. They're all Schlage keys, and so we know there must be a difference between all of these keys, or they wouldn't have them in here. And the main difference is going to be in the milling or the grooves of the key and the length of the key. And so we have to be cautious as we pick out the correct key blank as far as the grooves go. And you can see here that this is the standard Schlage key, the SC1. Okay, so I've zoomed in on this SC1. We can see they have some other ones here because this key is so popular. They sell it as a designer key and so on. But this is our key, and you'll notice that there's two different lengths. The SC1 is a 5-pin key. If you have a 6-pin lock, it'll be slightly longer, and it's called an SC4. We can see the bow is the same shape of bow. It has the two shoulders. It's the right length. And then here at the bottom, we have the silhouette of the milling right here. So I've zoomed in on just the silhouette of the milling here. Take the key, just stand the key straight up on the silhouette of the milling, and it should match exactly. If it doesn't match, then it's going to be one of the other keys. But this is the SC1 key, and it does match it exactly. Here, for example, are some other Schlage keys with slightly different millings. And of course, they're not going to fit in the SC1 because just like the SC1 will not fit into these keyways. You have to have a key that is going to match the milling. Now if they come in, with this key, again, say we don't recognize it, we look at the bow, we look at the length, again there's 2 shoulders, and probably by now you know this is a quick set key, but if you didn't, that would be the process that you would go through to determine the key. And you can see here that it has the same shape bow, the key is the same length, it fits on there exactly. And again, this key is so popular, they offer designer keys for this particular key, the KW1. Now what if this key comes in, one that looks something like this, and again we don't recognize it? Always ask for the use of the key. I mean, you probably do recognize the key, but you can go ahead and ask, get all the information you can about the key. And of course, this is an automotive key. So we would go straight to the automotive section of the catalog to try to identify this. Notice that there's no shoulders on this key. This key is an end-stop key. So I'm in the domestic key blanks, auto key blanks, and this is the first page of the domestic blanks. And right away, we can see that our key looks a lot like this one right here, doesn't it? I'll zoom in here on us so you can get a closer look at it. And again, just to lay it back on there, you can see that it matches the size exactly. And then in checking the milling of the key, just like with the other keys, we just stand it up and see if the milling matches the silhouette here of the milling, and it does. This is a Y155 Chrysler key. Now you'll notice throughout the catalog they show micrometers measuring the thickness of the key. And that is one thing that you want to pay attention to. You can have 2 keys that look alike, but one is much thicker than the other one. So don't forget to look at the thickness of the key as well as the length of the key. Okay, we'll do one more key blank identification here. Let's say we're looking for this key. This key has a stop on both the top and the bottom of the key. Basically, it's just a round bow on it. We'll just look through through the catalog. We can be pretty certain it's not a car key, and the customer should be able to tell us that it's not a car key. But if we go through, just quickly go through the catalog, we're going to come to a lot of keys that are round. And again, now we're looking for 2 stops. We can see, okay, well this key does have 2 stops on it. And we can put it on there and see if it'll fit. And basically it does fit that pretty good. That's an Illinois key blank. We can come down and look at our groove. I'll zoom in here on the silhouette. It won't be quite as easy to see this, but this is the problem with this, is that this does not match. And so this part that sticks up here, you can right away see that this key is different. It should have a groove going the other direction. You can see that on the back of the key that it has a groove there, and the top part doesn't match that. It's close, but it's, once you study them a little bit, you'll say, oh yeah, that's not the right one. So we'll just keep looking. Now here's another one. Again, it matches pretty close on the length, but again, that's not going to be the right milling on the key. So we'll continue through and see if we can find some other keys that might work for that. And pretty sure that this one here, see it's round, bow, 2 shoulders. Let's see if it'll fit that. And it does. And now we'll notice even with this key, which is a Yale key, there's several different millings for that key. So we'll need to look and see which one of these it is. Notice the differences in these. And Y11 and Y12 are very similar. Y13 is quite a bit different than these two. Y13 and Y14 are similar, and then Y103 is quite a bit different. But the milling is going to match the Y14. And that's, again, going to be difficult to see on the video, but when you actually do it in person and hold it up on there, you'll see that that profile of the key will be the exact profile of the silhouette. So that's the one that says a Y14 Yale key blank. Now this is a JET catalog, so obviously it's going to use JET key blank numbers. But what if you have a different number? It could be a manufacturer's number or a different key blank company's number. You can use the cross-reference to convert the numbers so that you can find the JET number and still use this catalog. The JET catalog contains 3 different types of cross-references: a universal cross-reference, a manufacturer's cross-reference, and specific key blank manufacturers' cross-references. Most key catalogs have similar cross-references. I will show you the ILCO catalog in just a few minutes. This is the universal cross-reference. In the first column we have the JET key blank number, then it will show the ILCO number, then the EASY number, then the STAR number, and then what page you would find the key blank on in this specific catalog. This cross-reference contains the original manufacturer's number, so they can be converted to JET numbers. Notice here the manufacturer. This first one on this column is for A bus, 41 left padlock. The JET number would be AB2, and you would find it on page 4 of this catalog. Here is a sergeant number, 6270RD, converts to the JET number, 6270RD-NS, and it's on 2 pages. You'll find it on both page 15 and page 27 in this catalog. Here we have a comparative key blank list. This section here is for coal key blanks. Notice the note right here. All coal and JET part numbers are the same except for the following. And so it only gives the ones that are different. But for example, AM4 in the coal is the same as the AM3 in the JET, and that key is found on page 4. This column is for Curtis key blanks, and it has the same note. They're only going to list the ones that are different. For example, in the Curtis, B52 is the same as the JET B54, then -NP. The NP simply means it's nickel plated. And this key blank is on 2 different pages, page 35 and page 40. And you can see they have 4 ESP key blanks, and then also the EASY numbers compared to the JET numbers. Here's the reference for ILCO, and we talked about ILCO is different than most of the other manufacturers, that they normally contain 4 numbers and then 1 or 2 letters. For example, the ILCO 1069E is the same as the JET D8789, and again it's on page 14. It also contains a conversion for the STAR key blank company and for the Taylor key blank company. So you probably could use either one of the 3 references. You could use the specific key blank manufacturer, you could use the manufacturer's number if you have the manufacturer's number, or you may just go straight to the universal cross-reference. Now it's pretty straightforward to use the cross-references, but I'll do one example. Say somebody brings in a key blank and it has the number 1069E on it. We can be pretty assured that that's probably going to be an ILCO number because it's 4 numbers followed by a letter. So if we look in the ILCO to JET cross-reference, we can see that that converts to a D8789, and it's on page 14. So if we turn to page 14 in the book, we can find the key blank, and it's number D8789. It's a National Rockford key blank, and the 8789 is a longer key blank. It's for a 6-pin lock. But that's how we would go about locating the key blank in the JET catalog if we started out with an ILCO number. Okay, now this is another key blank directory, and it's one I would suggest you pick up. It's the ILCO key blank directory. And they they've more or less become the authority on the key blanks and their designations and so on, and they have a real good catalog, and you can see it's much like the other catalog that we used in our practice exercise of identifying keys. But this is the ILCO key blank catalog. In ILCO's catalog, the key blanks, most of the single-sided keys are shown from the finger side of the key, and they give both the ILCO number followed by the easy number of the key blanks. Now, once you've identified the key blank which you think goes to the key, you can, of course, hold the two keys together, and you want to line their shoulders up so that the shoulders are even, and make sure that the tip is the same length. The key blade is the same width and the same thickness. From manufacturer to manufacturer, you may find the keys on the thickness are a little bit different, but they're going to be pretty close. And you don't want them way off. If you look at a key and it's half the size of the other one, chances are that you've got the wrong key blank. So pay attention to length of the blade, width, also the thickness of it. Look at the shoulders. Is there a shoulder on the top, a shoulder on the bottom? Does it have any shoulders at all? And some keys, as I mentioned, stop at the tip. They don't stop on the shoulder. So they don't need shoulders on the keys. Okay, once you've got the right key blank as far as the blade length and shoulders and thickness and so on, put the two keys together, the key you're going to duplicate in your key blank, and look down on the end to make sure that the milling of the key is the same as the blank that you have. Now, sometimes this is not real easy to tell depending on how fine the milling is. Now, once you're pretty sure you have the right key blank, the last thing to do is to check your milling right here where the grooves come right up against the bow of the key. Now, I want to show you a few more things that we can find in the ILCO key blank directory. A quick look at the table of contents will show us how the book is organized. Section 1's vehicle keys, Section 2's North American key cylinders, Section 3's international cylinders. Key 4, Section 4A here has to do with original keys and then look-alike keys. Section 5 is safe deposit box keys. 6A is flat steel keys. 6B is miscellaneous keys. 7 is bit keys and barrel keys. Section 8A is specialty keys. 8B, merchandising aids. Section 9 has to do with key machines, and then Section 10 also includes a cross-reference. If we can identify a key by the ILCO number, there is an index in the front of the directory. We can go right to the page number for that particular key blank number. The ILCO number for the Schlage SC1 is 1145. So if we look that up in the index, we can see that we need to go to Section 2, page 64, to find that key blank. So as we can see here, Section 2, page 64, we have the Schlage key blank here. At the top of the page here, it shows us the ILCO number 1145 is the easy number SC1. It has the silhouette here of the profile of the key. Here's the actual drawing, and this is the drawings are actual size, so the key blank should fit right on top of this drawing. And you can see that it does. So that works out easily if you know the ILCO key number. You can simply go to the index, get the section and page number, and turn to that page, and you'll find that key blank. Safe deposit box keys are identified basically by the thickness and the width. So just take a micrometer and measure the thickness and the width. If you know the brand name, you already know where to start looking. But again, you'll have drawings of the key blanks along with the measurements for the thickness and the width, and you'll be able to find the key blank fairly quickly in most cases. For just flat steel keys, The same is true as with the deposit box keys. Get the thickness and the width, try to identify the manufacturer, and again you'll be able to find the key. Now, I will point out that with flat keys, not all flat keys are just flat. Some flat keys do have some profile. So if the key does have a profile, the profile will be shown. If it's just totally flat, then they're not going to show a profile, of course, but they'll show the shape of the tip and so on that will be helpful in identifying the key blank. When trying to match a deposit box or flat key, the critical things to look at are the width of the key and the thickness of the key, along with the shape of the tip. When trying to locate a blank for a bit key, there's basically 5 different measurements you have to be concerned with, and these are pointed out in the ILCO catalog. This little area here is the neck. Need to measure that, and the bit, both the width and the height, then the diameter of the post, and then the 5th measurement would be the thickness of the bit. And of course you also have to be concerned with the profile of the key. So if we come over and look at a few of the bit keys that are available, you can see they have the different measurements. Shows post, neck, bit height, bit width, bit thickness, and then the profile. So you can normally identify a bit key, again, fairly quickly. If you have to, with flat keys and bit keys, oftentimes you will have to find one that is close, possibly, and then file the key to make it work. So in other words, you may have to modify the blank somewhat if it's a rare type key. When looking for a bit key blank, the critical things to look at as far as measurements are the nick, the width of the bit, the height of the bit, the thickness of the bit, the post diameter, and the profile of the key blank. In selecting a barrel key blank, there's 6 different measurements. The depth of the hole that goes up inside the shank is one measurement. Again, the bit height and the bit width would be 2 more measurements. We also need to be concerned again about the thickness of the bit, and then the actual barrel diameter on the outside and the hole diameter, which would be the inside measurement. And then again, of course, you have to be concerned with the profile of the key. Here are some examples of the barrel keys, and you can see that some of the handles are quite ornate. And again, if you get the measurements that I mentioned that we need to have to measure the key, the measurements will be right here, and again there will be a profile. And then again, if you have a real ornate bow on the key, of course that's going to be helpful. Here's other examples where the bow is more generic, but still may be significant. Again, the measurements. When looking for a barrel key blank, the critical things to look at are the depth of the hole that the key goes into, the width of the bit, the height of the bit, the thickness of the bit, then the post outside diameter and the post inside diameter. And then again, in the very back of the ILCO directory, you'll find a cross-reference with the ILCO number given next to the other manufacturer's number. Here, for example, will be Quickset. If you know the Quickset key number, this is again the original manufacturer key number, then it will show the ILCO equivalent number. Here's Lockwood, National Cabinet, and so on. All of the major manufacturers are here. Okay, this is a pretty good directory. It has a lot of key blank manufacturers in here, a lot of numbers and so on. But of course, it's not going to have every single number of every key that's ever been made, but it's basically most of them that they are allowed to publish. They've got in here. If it's a large manufacturer, they've tried to include it, but they cannot publish all of them. Some countries have laws against publishing key blank cross references. And so if it's against the law for them to publish the information, then of course it would not be in here. Most locksmiths prefer working with brass keys. Good brass keys are easy to cut, they're nice to work with. Brass with nickel plating is okay. Of course, the nickel plating makes it a little harder, but it's still a nice material to work with. Key blanks are also made out of nickel silver. They need a little harder key. They're using nickel silver. Also today they're using stainless steel, and then there are just plain steel key blanks and different types of malleable iron. Cheaper keys are made by different types of materials, but the most common key blank used by most locksmiths is either the brass key or the brass nickel plated key. Most key blanks are made out of brass. They may be made out of nickel. They may be brass with nickel plating, which is quite common. They could be nickel silver keys. They could be steel. They could be stainless steel today. And then there are other materials that are used also to make keys. Usually for less expensive keys, they use less expensive materials. Okay, I want to take a few minutes and just go over some of the more popular key bows that you should be able to recognize. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each one, so you may have to play this back a couple of times to get all of them, or pause the video on each one so that you can make notes about that particular blank. The first one here, of course, is Schlage. We've been talking about it already. Very, very recognizable key bow. This is the quick set bow. This is the Weiser bow. This is also a Weiser. This is the WR5 key blank, but again, this is a very popular key blank for Weiser. The Yale key blank, just a round bow. Westlock is pretty popular, has kind of some ears here to stick up on it. Here are two Medico. This one's pretty recognizable. This one's just round, and they also have a Medico that just has more or less a square head on it. So Medico has a number of different ones. This one is, of course, the most recognizable for Medico. Master is a very recognizable key. And then they also today have a master key blank for imported master padlocks. Both of these are Chicago. You can recognize their bow fairly readily. This is a Corbin. Today the company's Corbin Russwin, but they still have Corbin keys and they have Russwin key blanks. Here is the Russwin key bow. Sargent is a very large manufacturer of locks. Now I talked about Ilco being a supplier of key blanks and so on, but they also make locks, and this is the Ilco bow. They also have different shape bows. There's a round one, but this one's fairly recognizable with its top like it is on it. Here are two National locks. This part here distinguishes the bow on the National. Looking at a few of the automotive keys now, here's the very recognizable key blank is the Chrysler. You may still remember this bow here, General Motors. This was the B44, a very famous key blank that they used for many years. The B44, this shape was for the ignition. They had a two-key system, one for the ignition, one for the doors and the trunk. This shape was the B45 key, which was to operate the doors and the trunk. This is the traditional Ford key. Again, they have today a number of much larger keys, but this was the traditional Ford key. This was a Honda key, and again they have new ones, but kind of the traditional Honda shape bow. Traditional shape for the Toyota key. Nissan and Nissan Datsun. This was kind of the original shape here for many of their keys. And they also had this larger bow for many vehicles. And then Volkswagen had kind of a unique shape to their original keys. Please take just a moment to like the video and also subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.